I'm afraid we can't let you through customs, sir, and I'm going to have to ask you to come with me.
Is there a problem?
We've spotted something on the body scanner. Something concealed about your person. And by about, I mean up. And by person, I mean bottom. If this is an attempt to skirt the carry-on limits, tell us now.
That happens.
You'd be the third Toblerone of the morning. Brrr.
It's a piece of art.
Most artists hang theirs in a gallery.
Well, it's a comment on how art is intended to transcend borders, but nations try to impose ownership. It's like the Elgin marbles.
You're smuggling an Elgin marble?
Well, no, but I did get a marble stuck up there when I was 6. But that's beside the point. Here, look at this.
You've got Banksy scrawled on your left buttock.
Well, I'm carrying his latest work. I'm going to give birth to a masterpiece.
Give birth?
In a manner of speaking. At his last auction, he put his painting through a shredder. This time, he's upping the ante.
Right. And what can you tell me about this Banksy?
Well, I didn't get a close look at him. I was facing the other way for most of the installation process. But I do remember that he had very cold hands and a thick Colombian accent.
I see. Do you know what he put up there?
I think it's nice to preserve the mystery. I want people to look at my bottom the same way they look at Mona Lisa's smile. What is she hiding?
Probably not a kilo of the devil's dandruff. You, on the other hand, are a drugs mule.
More of a drugs mural, if anything.
It's going to have to come out, whatever it is.
Come on. I bent over backwards for this. Well, mainly forwards. You'd be destroying a masterpiece. You'd be crucified in the press.
You're just a run-of-the-mill smuggler.
I'm a smuggler. You're the one trying to smuggle lowbrow puns about bottoms in this otherwise reputable sketch show. What do you have to say about that, then?
I had dreams, and you wrecked 'em.
At which point, David Attenborough beat him to death with a macaque. And in other news, the government's budget proposals have come under fire today, with critics arguing that they represent poor value for the taxpayer. Here with me to discuss the matter is the taxpayer, Mrs. Johnson from Sale. Good evening.
Good evening.
As this country's sole taxpayer, how do you feel about the new proposals?
Well, honestly, I'm very worried, and what I don't understand is how come I'm the only taxpayer in England?
Well, it turns out that everyone else is either on benefits or technically in the Cayman Islands.
Well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I already give 40% of my money to the taxman.
And if I could just stop you there, also joining me to discuss the matter is the taxman. Jeremy Taxman, good evening.
Good evening.
Taxman, what would you say to the taxpayer?
I'm just doing my job. I have to pay taxes too.
You do?
Yes, I give myself money, and it's tax deductible, so I have to give it myself back. It's very confusing, and to be honest, I don't know what to do with it all. Last year, to be on the safe side, I spaffed it all on a yacht.
You bought yourself a yacht?
Yes, but I'm not allowed to touch it because it's offshore.
You're a very silly man. Joining us now is the spokesperson for Number 10. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have to say, I was actually hoping to speak to the Prime Minister.
Yes, well, the Prime Minister isn't the spokesperson for Number 10 because the Number 10 isn't Prime.
I see. How do you respond to this criticism?
I think a lot of it is just emanating from the usual headline-grabbing vocal minorities. You know, gays, lefties, horse fanciers, women, the employed. I think you'll find the silent majority are in favour of the plans.
Well, actually, we did interview the silent majority earlier, but they refused to comment. And what about the hard-working taxpayer struggling to put food on the table?
Really?
It's a very small table, and I'm not very coordinated.
And how would you respond to critics who are arguing that you've lost touch with ordinary voters?
I would say that's simply not true. I was touching some ordinary voters just this morning, in the bath.
Well, yes, and that's something we'll discuss in a future programme. But are you alienating normal voters?
Look, any suggestion that an alien is eating normal voters and that the Prime Minister is complicit in this by lightly seasoning them before spooning them into an alien speak...
Minister, I'm sorry, Minister, I think you misunderstood me.
Alien eating. Oh, then my apologies. Please disregard that statement in its entirety. Anyway, these latest economic policies are aimed at helping people like you, the squeezed middle.
I hardly think my personal appearance is relevant.
Well, I think we can all agree that Mrs. Johnson has somewhat let herself go, but is the Prime Minister failing to take into consideration other people's concerns?
Look, the Prime Minister has my every confidence. He's been listening to what the taxpayer has been saying. He's been listening to what his cabinet has been saying.
And what's he been getting out of the cabinet of late?
Whiskey and antidepressants. But I think you find the Prime Minister is handling the situation very strongly, and the word on the street is that he's doing very well.
Well, actually, I think you'll find the word on the street is bus stop. Anyway, that's all we have time for. Thank you to the Minister and the taxpayer for coming along. Now the weather. It's raining men. Hallelujah. The death toll's reached 20.
Knock, knock.
Oh, hello.
Hello, I'm one of the doctors here. Just coming in to check on you and the little fella. How are you doing?
Oh, bit shell-shocked still, but I'm getting the hang of it all. I'm really looking forward to going home.
Good, good. It's completely normal to feel a bit overwhelmed, but I'm sure you're doing just fine. Let's take a look at little...
Keith.
What, really? Baby Keith?
It was my dad's name, thank you for asking.
Fine, fine, no judgment here. Baby Keith then. Baby Keith. Keith the baby. Right. Let's take a little look at you. Now I'm just going to pop him on the scales. So he's gained 4 kilograms, gained a bit of weight, but we can sort that out with some liposuction in the hip and thigh area. Or maybe a Zempic if you want something a bit less invasive.
I'm sorry, what? Liposuction? A Zempic for a baby?
It's just a suggestion. Now he's got a cute little button nose, haven't you, baby Keith? A cute little button nose. Have you considered something more aquiline? I'm thinking an Adam Driver or even a Frank Zappa.
Aquiline?
You know, stronger profile. Help him stand out.
He's 2 days old. I don't think I want him to stand out. I'm just glad he's healthy. He is healthy, isn't he?
Oh, yes. Probably. Healthy but very jowly, don't you think? And wrinkly. He's only 2 days old and already wrinkly. What have you been doing? Have you been applying an SPF with ceramides morning and evening? Because Botox will only take you so far, and we might want to think about the glycolic peel route. And a full facelift's going to be tricky to pull off with that hairline. Talking of which, have you considered a hair transplant? Little man's bald as a coot. No offence.
Oh, none taken. No, wait, offence very much taken. Look, I don't know who you are, or if you even are a real doctor, but please stop drawing on my completely normal-looking baby with a Sharpie. I'm going to have to call security.
Fine, I'll go. Leave you to your flabby, wrinkly, balding offspring.
I think that's for the best.
So no BBL then?
What's a BBL?
Baby butt lift.
Just go.
Gerald, I've been turning this over in my mind, wrestling with thoughts I can no longer deny. Once upon a time, you and I were something magical. When you smiled, it brought me to life. When you laughed, you melted my heart. And when you hiccuped up a little sicky dribble, I pretended not to notice, even though everyone in the restaurant could smell it. The world was vibrant with our love. Scents were richer, skies took on a more brilliant hue. But now we seem lost, distant, out of place like a shoe on top of a bus shelter. I find myself waiting, longing for your return, and yet it's not anticipation that grips me, but fear. Fear of the next quarrel, the next bitter word. Fear of the growing chasm that widens with each passing moment. And Gerald, I know about the secrets you've tucked away in shadowed corners, the clandestine meetings you thought were well hidden. The sting of betrayal is raw, but it's merely a sign of the distance that now stretches between us. So it's time. Time for us to face the ruins of our love. Time for us to go our separate ways. Time for us to save what remains of us. We need to divorce, Gerald. It's time for us to let go.
But Martha, we don't need to divorce. We're not married. We met once while you were working the supermarket till, and I forgot my ID. And as I made abundantly clear to you before, I'm 8 cats in a Macintosh.
This episode was performed by Rachel Johnson, John Duckworth, Gemma Dag, and Anthony Thomason. The lead writers were John Duckworth, Rachel Johnson, Chris Waugh, and Paul Lowton, with additional silliness from the Manchester Comedy Writing Collective.